Welcome to the DevReady podcast, where we're helping non-techs build better tech. Today we're joined by Vicenç Garcia. He is the co-founder of Docufen. They are helping take away the paper headaches in the pharmaceutical space, and a lot of Vince's background is pharmaceutical. I'll let him dive into that as we go through the podcast. It's all about sharing his journey to date and what he's learnt across jumping from corporate into a startup. Vincent, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me here, Andrew. It's a pleasure.
So why have you gone down this journey is a question many will ask. What inspired you, Vincent, to go from your corporate world to jumping into a startup?
Well, maybe there was, I grew up in Barcelona, and there was a story that my dad told me at a young age. There was an artist who was extremely good at problem reframing. And he told me that once there was this competition and they had to paint hunger. So see who could paint the best, portrait of hunger. And one of most artists painted someone really skinny, someone really, really slim. But there was one that painted a bat with a spider web. And that made me laugh so much. And I thought, how did he think of that? And then my dad said, well, it's because he didn't think about the problem the same way that everyone else did. He thought there was nothing going out. So that is something that fascinated me.
Isn't it?
Right. Yes. Sorry for the graphic example. But anyway, that funny story stuck with me. And so I developed this patience for problems. So I just kind of like daydream with problems where you don't jump into a solution. You just look at it from different perspectives. And there was one time, I think I was maybe 8 years old. I was in the garden and we had some bees. And I wondered if the bees were the same bees coming back every day to the garden. And so I reframed the problem as they all look the same, right? It's not that I can't chase them. If I try to chase them, I'm going to lose them. And so I thought, no, the problem is that they all look the same. So how can I solve that problem? So I grabbed a jar with a bit of water and I carefully caught one. And then I wet it carefully, and then I put it on the ground. And while it could not fly, I grabbed my sister's paint kit and I put a line on the back. And I painted a few. And then the next day we came back and we had multicolored bees in the garden. Right?
Same bees.
So that is something. There is a great HBR article that talks about problem reframing called "Are You Solving the Right Problems?" That is an amazing way of we are great at finding solutions. I think we're not great at staying long enough with a problem and looking at it from different perspectives.
It is very easy to jump into a solution. A lot of people do that very quickly. And it's all about the app or the tech we're going to build or the way we're going to approach it or that new product we're going to build. Not, all right, what is the real problem? How do we get to that? It's a tough conversation, and I think it's hard to hold yourself in that state. How do you focus there for long enough to get you to a point of a real understanding of problem?
Right. Well, I'll dig into that. But I think, there's a quote from Albert Einstein that he said if he had only 1 hour to solve a problem that his life depended upon it, he would spend the first 55 minutes thinking about the problem and only the last 5 thinking about the solution. But yeah, that's how we do it. With regards to, how am I here? I think there's a lot of accidents, I guess, and mistakes. One was I ended up choosing a career that I disliked a lot, chemical engineering. And I thought, well, what am I going to do now? So someone said, why don't you go to and do some consulting in pharma? You're going to get to see a lot of different projects. And technology is something that I've always been passionate about. And so I believe that I was born with a digital soul, a love for technology. And I picked the worst profession.
Probably, yes. For digital, yes.
Yes. So I went into pharma and consulting. And then, so this is the most regulated industry in the world, the most complex in terms of regulations. And so everything, if something is not documented, you haven't done it. So the detail and the level of documentation that you need to create is insane. I went to visit a site in Melbourne just a month ago, and they showed me that their smallest batch record around 300 pages. Most of them are just
these are physically
big pile of
printed, aren't
documents.
they? Generally, yes.
Correct. With hand-filled critical entries in wet ink. And they make 65 batches a week. So that is 1 million paper sheets per year going into a warehouse, getting stored for as long as they operate plus 10 years.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is insane that in 2024, we have this crazy amount of paper in an industry that technology, where I worked, was state-of-the-art, sterile manufacturing with incredible technology. Yet we had the contrast that all our documents have not evolved. We still fill out documents today. I found the oldest one from the FDA. It's from 1903. And we still fill them out exactly the same
changed
way today.
Oh, wow.
Correct.
So why do you think that is? It's the regulation, or it's just how we've always done it? What is it? It's drummed into the industry that's how we do things?
Yeah. I find it so difficult to explain to someone from outside the industry. It just sounds insane, right? Why can't you document something digitally? Why is it so difficult? I think my experience, and so I suffered that problem for 14 years personally. So as a validation consultant, validation engineer, I generated and filled out more documents than any other department, for sure, guaranteed. We touch more paper than any other department, and we generate a lot of paper, actually, that department. But so what was I lost my thought on
I was just thinking, why has it not changed? Why are we stuck there?
Right, okay. So I spent maybe about 8 years in that industry, and that was in the year 2000. And then I went from following rules, and that was paper-based, and those were early days, so you could justify that we still had paper documents. But then I had a break. I took a walk on the wild side, and I worked in marketing and sales, and went from following rules to breaking rules. And then I came back to the industry for another 6 years, and I thought, I'm sure they don't use paper anymore. And I was surprised that we still use paper and we haven't moved. And I started asking why. Like, how is it possible? Like, why is this so difficult? Why is this so difficult? I think what makes it difficult, it is the incredibly regulated compliance. It's difficult. It is the most conservative industry for a very good reason. It's people's lives that are at stake. So, and the other thing is, it's difficult to change just in any industry. It's even more difficult to change in this one because if you're defending yourself in front of an inspector when you have an audit, you're comfortable doing that with paper because that's what you've done all your life, right? And so that is, I think, one of the reasons why people are struggling to change. And I think my point of view on the market is I believe that we are trying to solve too much. We're trying to solve the entire thing. We want a 100% solution that is complying and does everything. And the implementation, and this is necessary, but the implementation is completely hard. It takes years to implement one of those solutions. The friction's very hard, and you need to change a lot as a manufacturing site because it touches the core value of your quality management system. And so you need to adapt and change to things to be able to have these
big change
solutions.
Is not that easy. End-to-end process, rip it all apart and change it with something new can be quite difficult. Especially the bigger the business and the industry you're working in is all really big business effectively. That is driving a lot of big projects, high risk, and want to make sure they're ticking all the boxes. changing that means changing a lot of people's processes, but not just. I imagine that's cross-business process too. It's not just impacting one organisation. I believe it'd be cross, and that's how everyone works. So how do we change everyone at the same time? It's a fascinating problem.
Yeah, and like we've been using Microsoft Word to draft documents for decades, and that is where all your information is. And you grab those Word documents and you improvement and you copy and paste from all the documents and you update them. And so the industry is trying to say, well, stop using Microsoft Word, which is what you know, and let's create a brand new system that can do everything. And so that I think it's difficult. We're trying to solve too much. So we believe in solving rather than an end-to-end solution. It's a solution that actually is point focused. And if you can't beat the status quo, digitize it. So we're taking the same steps that you do on paper. We believe that should be done, that it can be done digitally. Just replicate what they do so that they feel like
they're still doing the same things.
There's
right?
almost nothing less to change.
I think
correct.
To make change and educate change is, especially big change, it is more difficult than producing the actual technology, in my mind. So the technology is one thing. To change thousands of people and how they operate is a bigger problem to solve for. If you can get them working still the same way, with a slight nuance of what the output is, that is a very different and an easier buy-in for people, rather than, all right, now you're going to log into a new system and everything's changed and this is how things are kept, and no, you're not going to make your documents here. We're going to make them for you based on field inputs, and whoa, too much. So fascinating that you've gone really trying to keep the process the same and then digitize. How's that gone in terms of those conversations? Because I feel like that would be a bit more comfortable for people.
Well, it is a new thing. Like it is that's what I've looked back and at my experience at what hasn't worked and why. And then I think, well, we should do something different, right? We should, also there's thousands of regulations and I can't see anywhere that says that we can't do what we're doing. Which is replicating what you do in Word and keeping things as flexible, keeping the advantages of paper and removing the tedious parts. But one of the things that was really helpful was, rather than, maybe it's a good time to mention that with regards to the problem, it's good to look for something in your domain. So if there's any entrepreneurs out there or anyone in corporate getting bored and have the feeling that things can be done better and differently, it's great to, rather than solve the most obvious problem that everyone can see, that's really hard. So the end-to-end digital solutions are necessary, but are really, really difficult. Someone inspired me and said, think about the most stupid thing that you do at work. And then just think about that for a while and then try and solve this small thing. Because normally you will get a solution that is a lot more creative than trying to solve. And it's easier to solve as well. So I spent about maybe a couple of years thinking, while I was working, I knew that at some point I wanted to do something about it. But I thought, what is the most stupid thing that I do at work?
It's a very interesting question. Even as I sit here and ponder my day to day, what's something stupid to do at work? Yeah, it's a fascinating question, because a lot of people are doing the same stupid thing mostly. So the best thing that I came up with was, the most stupid thing that I do at work is I press print to a document that is drafted digitally, and then I fill it out in wet ink. That is the most stupid thing that I work. And then you work backwards, like, well, why do we print? Well, we print because Microsoft Word doesn't know the industry rules. It's like, well, could we teach Microsoft Word the industry rules? It's like, well, yes, we could build an add-in for Word, like a plugin that understands all the rules. So after you draft your documents in Word,
you complete them with a keyboard instead of a pen, and you don't change almost anything else except that you remove all the tedious things like labeling hundreds of pages by hand by putting the page numbers, signing and dating every page, and all this stuff.
It's crazy what needs to happen in the space. So as you shift that thinking and have gone there, you told me a little bit off the conversation around how you tested your concept. Now, what an MVP really is. So a lot of people think an MVP needs to be a full-blown product, or at least something that can deliver the outcome. And it might not have all the bells and whistles, but it's something that can deliver an outcome. Tell me what your MVP was, because I find this fascinating.
Right. So I love technology, and I have some minimal coding skills just as a hobby. I've done some things, but I can't build something like that. So at the time when I was when I finished work and I started working on this project on Docufen, what I did is I wanted to have conversations with everyone in my industry. And so with these conversations, they start with a PowerPoint. So you just grab or you create a slide deck, keynote, and you create a few slides and you talk about the problem. And then ideally, you want to start talking only about the problem, because then no one will lie to you. If you talk about the solution, people may not want to hurt you, those that are close to you, and you don't want that. You want the truth. The other thing is I was fascinated about the problem, and I was really ready to ditch the solution very quickly, which I did a few times, because initially I thought of it as the solution would be an iPad app. And then I noticed when I had conversations with other companies that only AstraZeneca had iPads.
Yes, only one. That's a big change in investment then if you have to buy everyone an iPad, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, but if you had gone straight into the solution and build the app and then realized later that, oh, hang on, maybe not every company has it.
Yes. It could be hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment that you've saved yourself just by doing that.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. So, you just make some mock-ups with an iPad frame and you put your things in there, even if it looks scrappy, that's okay. It's enough for the conversation. And the other great advice that I received from an investor was you should try to kill your business idea every single day.
This is a fascinating one.
He said, look, follow that approach. If you can't kill your idea, it means that you've got a great business idea. And it's very helpful. So I thought, I'm going to share that in every conversation. So everyone that I talked to, I said, look, I got this advice. So can you come to my site and help me find the holes? Be the devil's advocate and try and help me kill this idea. See how it could die. And then you'll find that they come, oh yeah, maybe this could go wrong, or this could go wrong. And then you find that, yeah, okay, it breaks and I need to find a different solution. Or sometimes you can, okay, that breaks, but I can fix it doing something else.
Way to consider it. I think it's a fascinating way to approach a conversation. Been around startups for a number of years, and the challenge most people have is they go and show their product off. They might have an MVP, PowerPoint, whatever it might be. They show it to friends, family, and people they know. Now, what's one thing friends, family, and people you know not going to do? They're not going to break your heart. They're not going to say, oh, this is the terrible concept. It's really horrible. But if you frame it in a way of, let's look at the holes. How do we kill this idea? What's not going to work? Help me find these, because I'm trying to uncover what they might be and how do I make this better? And it's a very different conversation. And it's probably going to catapult you years ahead, and a lot less pain if you're doing it early, because doing it with a product is a hell of a lot harder than doing it with a concept or a problem that you're trying to work on. Yeah.
Correct.
It's a great piece of advice. I think everyone should jump on. When you told me that, I think, that's a big tick, and I've started using it actually in a few different areas. So great share for everyone that's sort of thinking about early stage stuff. Really good conversation starter.
Well, with regards to advice, I am a rookie, so don't take advice from. We haven't made it yet, but there's some things that in the process I'm finding helpful. I think that's giving some pretty.
But
good
everyone's
good
at least on their own journey and path, and this is why we love having these conversations on the DevReady podcast, where you're at this position in your journey and you've gotten to where you are today based on the advice you've been given. That advice may not serve you in the next 2 or 3 years. You'll learn new things. But you've come from a corporate environment and now working in a startup. There are a lot of people out there in that space thinking about these challenges and problems and want to go out into our own world and try something new. A conversation like this can help them catapult that years ahead of where they were if they started on their own, or maybe they weren't uncomfortable starting. So this is why this conversation happens, and why it's really good for you to give back and really tell people where you're at, even though you're so early on the journey.
And well, there's actually something beautiful about being a rookie, is that you don't know what's impossible.
It's very true. You don't know what is impossible. It's a fair point to take it. You don't know what the rules are either. Yeah.
Correct. And there was, an example, I think it was Stanford University. There was a maths class and there was a student that arrived late, and he missed the part where the teacher said, these two problems cannot be solved. And he missed that part, so he arrived and wrote it down, went home and solved them. So if you don't know what's impossible, you might attempt things that
are assumed impossible, right? So I think the frame that we put things in is very important. And we frame people as this is impossible to solve. People don't think about how. Yeah, it's a great example.
Yeah.
So tell me about your journey. How did you start the actual process of, now we're testing, we're talking, we're trying to kill the problem, we're focusing on have conversations only on problem state, which is another great piece of advice, because we can jump in way too early on a solution, i.e. your mobile app solution or your tablet app solution. You're a non-technical person. So what did you do? How did you go about building a technical company or a technical startup? What was the process you thought of, and what did you go through?
Right. So I had actually done a program with Founder Institute a few years ago, and I heard that there was another program called, a company called Antler that had this 10-week program that was super intense, but they were bringing together like-minded entrepreneurs, people with shiny eyes. It was an unbelievable experience. And so you get, a bunch of people like yourself together, and you try and meet your other half, someone that has the skills that you don't, and can help you build it. So I thought that'd be a great idea. So I joined that program. I was lucky to get in, and I did the 10-week program. There was halfway through, you have to pitch to the investor committee at the end, but halfway through they evaluate your idea. And I had initially brought a commercial co-founder. However, I followed the advice from the managing partner, who said that you need a technical, you need a CTO. And I was thinking, well, but this, seems like a simple technology, like an add-in forward, that doesn't seem complex. He said, you need to be in control and you need a CTO. And so I followed that advice, and I ended up speaking to someone that I met at the Founder Institute, and he jumped in as a CTO. He was actually had resigned from his job.
Good timing.
And he was available. So perfect timing. So he joined in, and then we followed the program, and we had mentors. We got to the end 2 days before the IC pitch. He was actually offered a job, so he took it.
Job,
so I ended up
fascinating.
Yeah. So I ended up pitching on my own, and I said, "Well, look, this happened," and so they asked what I was going to do, and I said, "Well, I'll find someone else," and I was extremely lucky to have met my CTO. Bill's amazing. He had joined the next cohort, so I saved him all the stress and all the gray hairs that I had through the 10-week program, and so we got to know each other. We talked about values. Antler has like a 50 questions to to meet your co-founder, and the profound questions that you should not just write down an email to each other, but we spent maybe 6 hours in a conversation. So we felt like we're on the same page as what we wanted in life and the startup and how we wanted to do things.
That's important when we go into business. We understand who we're going into business with. I started my journey a little bit differently when I went into business. We were working in the university, and we brought together 5 or 6 people, and 2 years later there was 2 of us left. So that we learned on the job as to who was actually there for what reasons and why, and the 2 of us are now still together 16 years later. But that's a different way of doing it. I think it's important to know who you're working with and what they value, what's important to them, and is it the right journey to go on together. It's probably the biggest decision you make. Nothing is built alone. The reality is building a successful business. You need people. You need quality people. People with different thoughts, different skill sets, different perspectives. We need all of the above, and we're not going to always get along, but we've got to know that we're on the same page and we're working towards the same thing, and we learn to work together. So it's a fascinating way of doing it.
No, one of the things that I found, many things that I found remarkable about my co-founder, Bill, is that he listens to podcasts that are the complete opposite of what he believes in. And he tries to find the good in that. I think about I'm not gonna.
But what is a belief system? If we dig into that is all past and experience, and what we've been exposed to is a finite, tiny bit of human knowledge and experience. So the reality is we can, our belief system can sometimes get in the way, not obviously drive us forward. So it's an interesting take on that one.
But you know what's great about that is that I believe that, I mean, we are different. We're very different, and we have very different opinions, but we listen to each other with intent to change our mind. And to quickly and emphatically admit that we are wrong. I think we are good at doing that. So ego goes aside. We don't want to be right. We want to be successful. So the
ego needs to go aside to be successful. Because if we get stuck on what we believe is right, or trying to win a conversation, that doesn't get us very far. The reality is it puts us in it probably keeps us in the same spot rather than move us forward. Vincent, Docufen, what's the plan? What's the vision? Where are you going? What are you looking to achieve? What's the goal? Transform the whole pharmaceutical industry. What's the goal?
Well, the goal is to make them feel like nothing has changed.
It's an interesting perspective.
That is the way that then maybe we get a chance to do this. But so the problem is born from 14 years of suffering it myself, of filling out paper documents. And the vision is, I'm just selfish. I wanted that pain to go away so badly that I had to do something about it. And so I felt like I know that the pharmaceutical industry doesn't have a good reputation, and I feel that is the decision of a minority that doesn't make it ethical. However, I can assure you that most or everyone that I've worked with had an amazing integrity, and that is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. Like, everybody's so mindful and putting so much effort to making products that are safe, and they think about patients, and you think about the decisions that you make. I've seen people make mistakes.
Every industry people make mistakes.
No one. Yeah, but I mean, I've seen people stuff up something that they could hide it, and they don't. And not hiding means repeating work, and nobody likes to repeat.
No one does.
But in that industry, you accept that you're going to have to do tedious things that I just dislike doing those things. So I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could spend the time really focusing on what matters, on creating safer products and thinking about the patient. So our vision is we imagine a world where the people that take care of us actually can have tools that help them make their life easier, and they can go home every day feeling that they're also taken care of. So we want to take care of these people. And then obviously the environmental impact, we don't mention it much, but it's
massive.
It's huge. We're talking
massive. Yeah.
We are talking about millions of trees, so the carbon footprint is
that's
huge.
a huge tick if you can tick that box and you infiltrate an industry like this and make a change. I've been exposed to pharmacy industry we've built clinical trial platforms, bits and pieces, and there's paper everywhere. And I've seen a tiny slither of it. And if that's how the whole industry is, I pull my hair out as to how they operate, but there's paper for everything. And changing that mentality is difficult. So if you can do it in a way where not much changes and it still feels the same, I think it's a good stepping stone to making a huge impact in terms of both carbon footprint, but also people's day-to-day in terms of how they operate. So hats off to you for going down this journey. I'll ask you one thing. What's a piece of advice you'd give someone that's sitting in a corporate office that has a core problem that they want to go and solve for? What would you advise them to do and to think about to go down this journey?
Well, I think the first thing would be to good on you for sticking to your domain. It's so tempting. I found this industry incredibly boring when I was working on it but now I find it exciting. It's a different story. But while you're there, you think, all these rules and regulations, wouldn't it be nice to go into an industry where it's fun? Like, this is not fun. Pharma is boring. Compliance, rules, regulations, it's not exciting. So it's tempting to want to go do something else outside your industry because you're excited or you've got some hobbies and something looks more fun. But if you can stay in your domain, then the great benefit is that you know the problem really well. You have suffered, you have experienced it, even though it's good to have a strong opinion, but hold it lightly. So listen to, I had a very clear idea of where we wanted to go, but I've changed a lot.
You need to be flexible, right? So that's one thing. Flexibility is important.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And then if good on you if you want to solve something in your domain, that's great. Because you're also going to have your network, which you can tap into. Imagine doing some cold selling, like the opportunities we've had is because of the people that know you and because and because you have some credibility of things that you've done in the past. So they think, well, okay, I think this person can deliver on this project as well. And then would be to, once you've picked up or you decided to pick a problem from your domain, then instead of trying to solve the most obvious, take some time and think for a long time, what is the most stupid thing that I do at work? Because that's going to give you a much more creative, cheaper, faster, innovative solution than the most obvious one. And then, the following advice would be to test that idea as quick as you can. Dropbox was a great inspiration story regarding that. They just created an animation, a video, and I think they had something like 80,000 people subscribe.
Massive amount. Yeah, they did really, really well and proved the product before they had it. So yes, yeah. That's what we all want to achieve. And I think in the world of startup, people get a bit frightened by people going to steal their solution. I think you need to share your solution. There's no if, buts, and maybes. The reality is, if you're not sharing, you're not getting the feedback, and you could be investing in an area that no one really cares about. So better to share than risk the chance of failure. We work in technology and been delivering technology around startups for a long time. 80%, and I'll say 80% of our clients that we work with have either built the wrong solution, built it the wrong way, invested in the wrong space, and have a lot of war stories to talk about that. You don't want to be in that spot. You must be sharing, you must be getting feedback, because the reality is the first solution you come up with is likely not the right one. You need to think about that in the world of startup.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Vincent, on the DevReady podcast. Good luck with everything, Docufen. Really appreciate you taking the time to come and join us today.